It began on a night that had no particular reason to be remembered, the kind of evening where the street lamps hummed louder than the thoughts in my head. I had parked my car in the only space on the block that wasn't already occupied by neighbors who seemed to own fleets of vehicles for no clear reason. I was still arguing with the vending machine in my mind, replaying the betrayal of it refusing to give me my second bag of chips, when the sky tore open above me. Not a metaphorical tearing either, an honest-to-goodness rip, like someone had dragged a glowing blade across velvet darkness. At first, I thought it was one of those weather balloons the news likes to call unidentified. Then the thing came down, fast, trailing silver light like a meteor on fire. It didn't land gracefully, no gentle descent, no romantic hovering. It slammed into the hood of my car with the enthusiasm of a wrecking ball. Sparks leapt up, alarms screamed, and I screamed louder. My legs decided they had no loyalty to me and started running before my brain approved the idea. The pod hissed as though it had something to say. Steam rolled off the metal, which looked less like a spaceship and more like an alien's attempt at a luxury coffin. I crept closer, mostly because curiosity is a disease with no cure, partly because I couldn't afford another car. The metal unsealed itself with a sound like tearing silk, and I found myself staring into a light so bright it seemed to burn the dust out of the air. She stepped out. At first glance, she could have walked right off the cover of a sci-fi magazine, tall, slender, the kind of posture that makes you think she'd never once dropped her phone on her own face while lying in bed. Her hair shimmered like the silver of her pod, her skin held a faint glow as though starlight had claimed her as its own, and then there were the ears, long, elegant, tapering to fine points that flicked toward sounds I couldn't hear. They were beautiful in the way dangerous things are beautiful, and they made me wonder if rabbits everywhere had just been dethroned as the kings of listening. She looked me over as though deciding whether I was worth acknowledging. Then, in perfectly fluent English, though wrapped in a tone like bells resonating through water, she said, "You are the chosen one." My first reaction was to check behind me. Chosen one? I was fairly sure the only thing I'd been chosen for was a permanent discount card at the local pizza shop. I tried to speak, but what came out sounded suspiciously like a wheeze. Me? I finally croaked. You, she confirmed, and stepped closer, her presence carrying the weight of inevitability. You are humanity's key. Humanity's key, I repeated slowly, because my brain refused to keep up. Right. Okay. Important question, what kind of key are we talking here? House key? Car key? Skeleton key? I'm just trying to set expectations. She blinked once, unamused. Clearly, galactic emissaries had no patience for nervous comedy. Your unpredictability, she said, her voice lowering, makes you dangerous to our enemies. Unpredictability? I laughed, but it came out more like a hiccup. Lady, the only unpredictable thing about me is whether I'll remember laundry day. Behind me, the wreck of my car still smoldered. A part of me wanted to demand compensation, maybe ask if her people had interstellar insurance. The other part was starting to panic, because there were already headlights turning the corner, neighbors, curious, maybe even the police. And I had no quick explanation for why a glowing woman with fantasy elf ears was climbing out of a smoking pod in my driveway. Look, I said quickly, I'm flattered, really. Never been anyone's chosen anything before, unless you count middle school dodgeball, but maybe you've got the wrong guy. Her gaze sharpened, as if she were peering past my skin and rummaging through my very cells. No mistake, she said. You are the one. My name is Lyra. And your life is no longer yours. Great. Just what every man wants to hear from a strange, terrifyingly gorgeous alien, you've been drafted. The approaching cars slowed, brakes squealing, voices spilling into the night. I started to panic for real now. Lyra? We might want to not be here when someone calls the news and I end up as tomorrow's viral video. She raised a hand, and the air rippled. Just like that, the pod, the wreckage, and even the smashed hood of my car shimmered until they no longer seemed to exist. To anyone else, the driveway was spotless. To me, reality had just been rewritten like a bad first draft. My jaw dropped. Okay, that's cheating. I've been trying to clean my apartment for months and you, what, just wave your hand and poof. Lyra tilted her head, ears flicking. It is technology, not magic. Technology. Right. And here I am still fighting with the TV remote. She ignored my sarcasm, taking a step closer. You must come with me. The longer you remain, the more danger Earth faces. Danger? I repeated, the word sour in my throat. From who? Her eyes lifted toward the sky, and for a moment I swore I saw stars shifting, as if some predator stirred behind them. The Tharkesh, she whispered. I shivered, not just from the way she said it, but from the way the air itself seemed to tighten around the name. Then she looked back at me, those long ears twitching with an alertness I could never match. You are humanity's key, she said again, softer this time. And I will prove it to you. I stared at her, half expecting to wake up in my bed with my phone buzzing its morning alarm. Instead, I felt the ground tremble as the pod behind her hummed back to life, glowing with a power that made every cell in my body hum. Chosen One. Humanity's key. Cosmic enemies with names that sounded like sneezes. I rubbed a hand down my face and muttered, why couldn't I just be chosen for a lottery ticket? And with that, the night I thought would vanish into nothing became the night my life fell out of the sky and smashed the hood of my car that I woke up the next morning convinced it had been a dream. The kind of bizarre, cinematic dream that leaves you squinting at the ceiling and muttering, what did I eat last night? My car was intact. My driveway was spotless. No smoking crater, no glowing pod, no alien woman with ears that could probably pick up FM radio. I would have dismissed it all, if not for the faint silver shimmer clinging to my wrist, pulsing like a vein of light beneath the skin. So naturally, I did what any responsible adult would do. I wrapped it with duct tape and went to make coffee. Halfway through my first sip, she appeared. No knock, no door opening, just appeared, like she'd been standing there the whole time, shimmering into focus. I nearly spilled boiling coffee on myself, which I'm sure would have been a great first impression for humanity's chosen one. You didn't dream, she said. I was really hoping I did, I replied, still clutching my mug like it was my only weapon. Do you people not believe in knocking? Or doors? Or, I don't know, boundaries? She ignored me, her gaze settling on the duct tape. One elegant brow rose. You tried to conceal it. Yes, I snapped. I live on Earth. When something starts glowing under your skin, it usually means you either need a doctor or an exorcist. Duct tape felt like the middle ground. Her ears twitched once, the alien version of a sigh. It is a mark. Proof that the key has awakened in you. Key, 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 everyone's talking about keys, I muttered, setting my mug down. Does this make me, like, a universal locksmith? Do I get a cool uniform? She stepped closer, all starlight and seriousness. It makes you the only unpredictable factor in a war already underway. Hold on. I raised a hand. War. As in pew pew pew, planets exploding, giant lizards in power armor stomping across galaxies? Because you're talking to someone whose greatest fight so far was with a parking meter. Her expression didn't shift. The Tharkesh are already moving. Their ships approach the edges of your system. I blinked at her, then laughed, because what else do you do when someone tells you space war is knocking on your solar system's door? Great. Perfect. Wonderful. And you want me to, what, give them a stern lecture? Bake them cookies? Because I can tell you right now, my resume is not battle-ready. You have qualities no warrior possesses, she said. Chaos follows you. The Tharkesh cannot calculate chaos. That's not exactly flattering. You basically just called me a walking accident. She actually tilted her head as if weighing the accuracy of that. Yes. Before I could argue, a low hum filled the air. Not from my fridge, which wheezed on its last legs, but from outside. I stumbled to the window. A sleek, sharp-edged craft hovered above the street, cloaked in silver light, almost invisible until you squinted hard enough. My neighbors jogged past with their dogs, completely oblivious. "Okay," I whispered, "this is officially too much before I've even had breakfast." "We must leave," she said, her voice softer now, almost kind. "If you remain, Earth's governments will detect me." "And you?" I hesitated. "Wait, are you saying if I go with you, Earth gets safer? Like, I'm a galactic magnet for bad guys?" Her silence was answer enough. I stared at my kitchen. The half-eaten bagel, the stack of unpaid bills, the photo of me and my college buddies where I'd blinked at the wrong time. Ordinary life, about to be torn apart. My chest ached with the kind of fear you can't laugh away. Then she held out her hand. Long fingers, steady, patient. "Trust me, human." I snorted. "We're really going to have to work on names. I'm not answering to human for the rest of my life." "Then tell me your name." I did. She repeated it slowly, her voice reshaping the syllables into something strange and musical. For the first time, she smiled. Only slightly, but enough to make my stomach do something I didn't approve of. "Fine," I sighed, taking her hand. "But if we end up in some kind of alien DMV line, I'm going home." The moment our hands touched, the silver mark under my skin flared bright, and my kitchen disappeared. We reappeared inside her ship. The floor was a shifting metal that moved under my feet like rippling water. Walls pulsed with faint light, no seams or rivets, as if the whole thing were grown instead of built. And in the center, a console bloomed like a flower, petals of translucent crystal unfolding as she approached. I gawked. "You guys don't do cup holders, huh?" She ignored me, her fingers brushing the console. Symbols lit up, floating in the air, rearranging themselves into languages I couldn't understand. One by one, they clicked into English letters. The console finally spat out, "Welcome, Supreme Couch Potato." She glanced at me, puzzled. "Is that a title of honor?" I slapped a hand over my face. "That translator is broken." "Broken?" "It's supposed to say my name, not that." Her ears twitched again, amusement flickering across her face. "Perhaps it sees you more clearly than you do." I groaned. "Great. So not only am I the chosen one, I'm also the galaxy's most decorated couch potato. Exactly what Earth needs in a hero." She pressed her hands firmly against the pedals of the console, and the ship began to hum louder. Outside the windows, the stars shifted, and Earth fell away. I swallowed hard, my stomach already regretting breakfast. "So, where are we going?" "To the council," she said. "They must see you. And if they don't like me?" Her eyes narrowed. "Then I will protect you." There was something terrifyingly sincere in the way she said it. I wanted to crack another joke, but for once, words stuck in my throat. Instead, I sank into the nearest seat, clutched the glowing silver on my wrist, and tried not to think about the fact that I'd just left Earth because an alien woman with long ears thought I was humanity's key. And that, somehow, didn't even crack my top 3 bad decisions of the week. The first thing I learned about space travel was that my stomach wasn't invited. It had packed up and left the moment the stars stretched into rivers of light and Earth shrank into nothing. I clung to the seat like a man auditioning for the world's worst roller coaster, groaning through clenched teeth. Lyra didn't even flinch. She stood perfectly balanced in the middle of the ship, hands gliding over the living console as if she were conducting an orchestra only she could hear. "You will adapt," she said calmly. "Adapt?" I croaked. "Lady, I barely adapted to losing the headphone jack on my phone. This is nausea with special effects." Her ears twitched, which I was beginning to recognize as the alien equivalent of an eye roll. She didn't answer, and I was left to groan in silence until the ship finally slowed, stars snapping back into recognizable dots. When I finally lifted my head, I gasped. A station floated in the void ahead, vast enough to eclipse the stars behind it. It wasn't metal and bolts like human space stations, it curved like a living thing, with spires that spiraled upward and great wings that glowed as though alive with captured starlight. Ships of every imaginable shape docked along its edges, discs, blades, spheres, and one vessel that looked suspiciously like a giant teapot. "Welcome," Lyra said, "to the Ark Spire." I squinted. "You guys name your stations after fantasy novels." Ignoring me, she guided the ship into a docking bay that unfolded like a blooming flower. When the ramp extended, she gestured for me to follow. The inside was even more overwhelming. Corridors stretched like arteries, pulsing with gentle light. Creatures moved around us, some tall and crystalline, some short and covered in flickering scales, and one that looked like a walking pile of spaghetti with eyes. They all stared at me. Some whispered. One laughed, a sound like bubbles popping underwater. I whispered to Lyra, "Are they staring because I'm human, or because I have toothpaste on my shirt?" "Both, perhaps," she replied without looking at me. "Great. Humanity's ambassador, underdressed and underqualified." We passed through a hall where translucent walls displayed moving star maps. They shifted constantly, glowing lines tracing fleet movements across entire sectors. I leaned closer to one map and watched a symbol blink red near the outer rim of our system. "Is that?" "Yes," Lyra said. "The Tharkesh." The word hung heavy between us, and for once, I didn't try to joke. We finally entered a vast chamber. At its center rose a dais surrounded by tiers of alien figures, their eyes, or equivalents of eyes, glittering in the dim light. A dozen species, each stranger than the last, all watching me like I was a bug under glass. Lyra stepped forward, speaking in a tongue that rang like chimes. The translator on my wrist buzzed, and suddenly I could understand. She was introducing me. Not as some bumbling guy who worked a dead-end job, not as the dude who once ate expired yogurt by accident, but as the chosen human, unpredictable, unique, vital. They didn't look convinced. One of them, a massive creature with skin like molten rock, rumbled, "This is the key." "This trembling thing." I swallowed hard. Hi. Trembling thing here. I'd shake your hand, but I'd probably catch fire." A ripple of laughter went through the chamber, though I couldn't tell if they were laughing with me or at me. Probably both. Another council member, her body made entirely of swirling mist, hissed, "Humans are reckless. Their wars destroy themselves. Why should we trust them with ours?" I raised a hand. "For the record, most of us just argue on the internet. That's our main form of war." I'm practically a decorated veteran of comment sections. More whispers, more stares. Lyra shot me a look that said, "You are not helping," but I kept going. Because the truth was, standing in front of a room full of aliens who could probably squash me like a grape, sarcasm was the only weapon I had. "Look," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I don't know why you picked me. I'm not brave. I'm not strong. I'm not even that good at Mario Kart. But if your enemies are expecting logic and strategy, then yeah, I'm unpredictable. Because unpredictability is all I've ever been good at. So maybe that counts for something." For a long moment, silence. Then the molten giant leaned back, considering. The mist woman whispered to her neighbor. And one of the crystalline beings chimed softly, like glass struck by a spoon. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared. The walls lit crimson. A voice echoed through the chamber in a dozen languages, *unidentified ships breaching dock perimeter. Hostile signatures detected, *. Lyra's hand went to her weapon. The council erupted in shouts. And me? I groaned, of course. Every time I give a speech, something explodes. High school prom, college debate, and now intergalactic politics. The floor shook as the first explosion hit. The ceiling above trembled. Aliens rushed from their seats, guards flooding the chamber. Lyra grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward a side passage. "The Tharkesh are here," she said. I stumbled after her, my heart pounding. "Wait, they came all the way out here just to crash my introduction. What are they, space bullies?" Her ears twitched once. "They will not stop until you are destroyed." "Great. No pressure. Just the fate of humanity, a furious council, and a bunch of interstellar invaders targeting the galaxy's least qualified representative. And I hadn't even finished my coffee this morning." The corridor shook around us, panels flickering, alarms screaming in half a dozen languages. I was running because Lyra was dragging me, and honestly, she was doing 90% of the work. My legs were flailing like windmills behind her. "This is fine," I gasped. "Just another normal day. Wake up, have coffee, get abducted by an elf from space, almost die in an intergalactic government building. Totally fine." "Keep moving," she ordered, ears flicking as another explosion rumbled somewhere above. We turned a corner, and suddenly armed figures poured into the hall. Tharkesh soldiers. Their armor shimmered like black glass, their helmets stretched into sharp ridges, and they carried weapons that hummed like angry bees. One lifted a blade that looked entirely too large for comfort. I panicked. Not in the heroic, dramatic way, more like the squeaky noise and flailing arms way. My hand smacked a glowing panel on the wall. Suddenly, a door slid open under the soldier's feet, and he vanished with a howl. I blinked. Did I just? "Yes," Lyra said, swinging her weapon in a blur of light. "Accidental, but effective." "Story of my life," I muttered, ducking as another blast scorched the air above my head. "We fought, well, she fought." I stumbled, pressed buttons I shouldn't have, and somehow triggered more doors, traps, and one moment where the lights flickered into strobe mode, which I'm fairly sure only made the soldiers more confused than me. By the time we reached the docking bay, the station shook violently. Smoke poured from ruptured walls, alien civilians ran in every direction, and Tharkesh fighters stormed through the chaos. Lyra pulled me behind cover. "Stay here." "Yeah, sure, because that's going to happen." I peeked around the corner and immediately ducked back as plasma bolts shredded the air. "Nope. Staying here sounds like a terrible idea. You are not a warrior." "Exactly. Which means the safest place for me is right behind you, while you do all the cool laser fighting." She gave me a look that could have frozen suns, then vaulted over the barrier, weapon blazing. I sat there, heart pounding, watching her move like liquid light through the chaos. She was terrifying, beautiful, and absolutely going to get me killed. A soldier lunged toward her blind spot. Without thinking, I grabbed the nearest object, what looked like a crate of glowing spheres, and hurled one. It hit the soldier square in the chest. Instead of exploding, the sphere expanded instantly into a sticky net of blue energy, pinning him to the wall. I froze. Okay, either I just invented alien dodgeball, or I saved your life. Lyra dispatched 2 more soldiers, then glanced back at me. Both. Sweet. Do I get a medal, or at least a snack? Before she could reply, a roar shook the docking bay. A Tharkesh raider ship crashed through the outer barrier, claws of metal tearing into the station. Soldiers poured from its hatch like ants from a nest. Fantastic, I muttered. Because things weren't already stressful enough. Lyra pulled me to my feet. We must reach my ship. Now. We sprinted through chaos, weaving between blasts, falling debris, and aliens shouting in languages my translator barely kept up with. Somewhere along the way, I tripped, rolled, and landed in front of a soldier. He raised his weapon, and I did the only thing I could think of, I screamed and threw another glowing sphere at his face. It worked. He stumbled backward, tangled in blue netting. Lyra hauled me up again. Perhaps chaos truly is your strength. Or maybe the universe just thinks I'm funny, I wheezed. We finally skidded into her ship, the ramp rising behind us as the bay crumbled. The console bloomed open at her touch, and the craft shuddered to life. As we lifted off, I glanced back at the Ark spire, its glowing towers fractured, its spires burning. For all its alien beauty, it looked heartbreakingly fragile now. The council chamber, those strange, terrifying beings who had judged me so harshly, was gone in smoke and fire. And somehow, I knew the Tharkesh hadn't come for the station. They'd come for me. I sank into a seat, adrenaline draining into exhaustion. Okay, I muttered, so, to recap, I'm officially public enemy number 1 to an entire galactic empire. I almost got vaporized 3 times, invented space dodgeball, and discovered that running is not my strong suit. Did I miss anything? Lyra's hands moved across the console, her expression grim. You missed that you survived. Many did not. I swallowed hard. My jokes didn't feel so funny anymore. But then the console chimed, flashing symbols before spitting out another translation in glowing English letters, * welcome back, Supreme Couch Potato. Probability of survival, less than 1%. Congratulations on exceeding expectations, *. I groaned and dropped my head into my hands. Great. Even your ship is roasting me. Lyra allowed herself the faintest flicker of a smile. Perhaps it understands you. And for the first time since this madness began, I almost laughed instead of cried that we didn't land so much as collapse out of the sky. Lyra's ship slammed into the hangar of a world that looked like it was stitched together from glass and steel, humming with energy fields I couldn't even begin to name. The ramp hissed open, and I staggered down like a man just surviving the worst carnival ride in the galaxy. My legs were jelly. My dignity was long gone. But I was still alive, which, statistically speaking, was kind of a miracle. We were met by survivors from the council, half their number, scorched and shaken, but still standing. Their eyes fixed on me. Not Lyra, not the wrecked ship, not even the fresh holes in my shirt. Me. I hated it. I wanted to tell them I wasn't chosen for anything. That I was just the guy who duct-taped glowing alien marks and screamed at vending machines. But Lyra stepped forward, and her voice cut through the tension. He is the proof. The Tharkesh expected order. They expected calculation. Instead, they found chaos. And chaos saved us. I almost raised my hand to correct her. Technically, her swordsmanship had saved us while I tripped and threw things. But I bit my tongue. Maybe she was right. Maybe stumbling around unpredictably had actually counted for something. The molten-skinned giant who'd mocked me before lumbered closer. His voice was a furnace rumble. Human, speak. Oh, perfect. Public speaking. My greatest enemy. I cleared my throat. Ah. Hi again. Trembling thing here. Look, I know you think humans are reckless, and you're not wrong. We mess things up. A lot. But sometimes that's exactly why we win. Because we're messy, loud, stubborn, and we laugh even when we're terrified. Especially then. The Tharkesh don't understand that. They can't predict it. And that's why, with you, with Lyra, we have a chance. Silence. I swallowed hard. Also, just throwing this out there, if we win, I think I deserve free snacks across the galaxy. Nothing fancy. Maybe a lifetime supply of those glowing netballs I used earlier. Worked wonders for me. To my utter shock, laughter rippled through the chamber. Actual laughter. Even the mist woman, who I was sure didn't have lungs, let out a sound like wind chimes in a storm. For the first time, they didn't look at me like I was a joke. They looked at me like I was part of them. Lyra's hand brushed mine, subtle but steady. You see, she whispered. They begin to understand. The next days blurred into planning. Fleets reorganized, survivors regrouped, and somehow, I was included in strategy sessions. Not because I was a genius tactician, but because every time I opened my mouth, I said something so wildly impractical that it sparked ideas no one else considered. My suggestion of throwing decoy ships shaped like giant rubber ducks. Dismissed at first, then adapted into a plan for unpredictable swarm tactics. My sarcastic idea of broadcasting terrible human sitcoms to the enemy fleet. Repurposed into a jamming signal so absurd that Tharkesh didn't know how to counter it. Apparently, being a disaster had tactical value. Who knew? When the final battle came, I wasn't in the front lines with a weapon. I was in the command chamber, strapped into a chair that looked uncomfortably like a dentist's nightmare, feeding one chaotic idea after another into the fleet's network. Lyra stood at my side, a warrior and guardian, while alien commanders actually listened to me. And when the Tharkesh broke, confused, divided, overwhelmed by tactics they couldn't predict, I realized something. For once, I wasn't just surviving by accident. I was helping. Afterward, the galaxy didn't suddenly become a paradise. The Tharkesh weren't gone forever, and humans weren't suddenly sainted heroes. But the council voted. Earth would be given a seat. Humanity had a place among the stars. When the announcement ended, I turned to Lyra. So, what now? Do I get a retirement plan? Maybe a vacation? I've always wanted to see Saturn's rings up close. Her ears flicked, and for once, she actually smiled. Now, you choose. You are no longer only human. You are part of something greater. I let out a shaky laugh. Yeah, but you're stuck with me. Supreme couch potato, unpredictable chaos machine, professional accident. Still want that? She tilted her head, eyes gleaming. Especially that. And somehow, in that moment, I didn't feel like an accident anymore. I wasn't the trembling thing. I wasn't the guy with duct tape on glowing skin. I wasn't even just a human. I was the key. And for the first time in my life, I was okay with that.